And I noticed in your notes, John, that you pulled out the five-year inflation expectations, and I thought we'd look at this because Mario Draghi, we know that he's looked at this over his tenure as well, but this shows a sort of, I suppose, a sorry story. If you measure, if all you're interested in is creating inflation, then this shows a sorry story. I mean, on the upside, I suppose we'd be panicked more if we were too far above the inflation target all the time. I
think actually, well, maybe Europeans would be, but right. I think actually globally, everyone would rather be above their inflation target at the moment because we've been below it for such a long period that the question is, can you ever get back? And so from that perspective, I mean, markets just don't believe that inflation is going to come through, and that's a very sad state of affairs. I mean, that is his primary mandate. His primary mandate was not save the euro. It was probably more important, and he did that very successfully. But actually on the inflation side, you know, core inflation down at 1%, and inflation expectations at their lows of his full 8-year period.
So should he have done more of what he did, or should he have done other things?
So I think the problem he inherited with the policy mistake of the rate hikes before he joined, Europe needed to act more at the speed that the US and UK did in the global financial crisis. That put Mario Draghi at a disadvantage because by the time he took over, he'd already missed part of the opportunity to kickstart it. But then really you need more on the fiscal side and you need faster, bigger action. You needed to keep inflation expectations up.
So, speaking of inheritance, today we're going to see basically what Christine Lagarde gets in the will, so to speak. The MLive question of the day is, how will markets like Lagarde after Draghi? What do you think as far as, I guess it's not as important how markets like her, but what is she going to do as far as carrying on the legacy? Is she going to make the necessary changes that you're asking for?
So we'd expect a continuation of policy, and I think markets will be comfortable with that. Maybe Germany, France, Austria, etc. will be less comfortable because that could mean further rate cuts and further bond buying and further measures, which are necessary. We're a long way below the inflation target. But I think where markets will struggle more is if and when there's a crisis, and that's just because she's a less known quantity. With Draghi, they knew that when it really came to it, he was prepared to take bold action, even in some cases before it had been fully cleared with other members of the ECB. And in doing so, he really gave markets some confidence that he would do whatever it takes. And until they actually see that from Lagarde and she gets her first crisis and the first requirement to take bold new action, until then, nobody quite knows how quick and how strong she'll be in the action she takes.
The question, I guess, so I'm excited to see what Mario Draghi is going to say today if he gets specific about his fiscal wish list. Clearly, Germany is on that. He'd like them to spend more, even though Berlin will say they are spending more and they can't really spend much more with any great effect. Do you think Christine Lagarde is going to be able to successfully convince countries that have money to spend where Mario Draghi couldn't?
Only if voters change their minds. So if voters in Germany decide that infrastructure investment is sufficiently important to them, it's justified, and they'll vote for it, then yes, you get your change. But you're not going to go for fiscal policy if you know it leads to the end of your leadership of a country. And historically, that's really been the issue in Germany, that the German population has not supported it. What Mario Draghi really wants is German investment in other European countries, which is extremely unlikely, because that's what Europe really needs. You have this problem of monetary union, which Germany has benefited from, without fiscal union. So without spending that money in the areas that need it. Germany benefits from a lower currency as a result of being in the euro. That makes it more competitive. It leads to these large budget surpluses and falling debt below 60%, falling to 45% by 2024. And you compare that with Italy, with debt of over 130% debt to GDP. It's Italy that needs the fiscal spending and the fiscal help, and it's Germany that has the money.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One of our colleagues, ECB watching colleagues in Frankfurt, suggested that one of the good questions to ask people today was, will Lagarde manage to convince the Germans that the ECB is on their side? Well, maybe not if you were to pick up on what you were just saying there about the fiscal transfer. Let's leave it there. John, thank you very much. John Roe from Legal and General Investment Management.